ladies.
Hello.
Happy Thursday. The good girlfriends are back.
Yay.
I missed our good girlfriends chats. We were gone the whole summer. We had a great summer. I did get to spend time with my good girlfriend Jeanette this summer. So I'm excited about that. And I got to see a lot of our good girlfriends this summer. So I am happy about that. But we are happy to be back. And we earlier this year, we spoke of our guest and talked about that she was going to be our first guest for this season of Good Girlfriends. And it is none other than Ericka Sallee. She is a speaker, self-help author, transformation success coach, and owner of True Synergy LLC. And she's my Baltimore Polytechnic Institute sister. And she has written this fabulous book called I'm Here Now what? Finding Joy After the Storm. And I have to tell you, I've already told Ericka this, that I was holding off reading the last few pages because I didn't want the book to end. So I kept like reading one page so I could continue every night just to read her book. It's such a great book. Everyone should go out to Amazon and get this book. And we're going to discuss it tonight. And so welcome, Ericka.
Yay.
Thank you, Cara and Jeanette. It's wonderful to be here. Listen, I've been looking forward to this ever since we locked down the date. And I just want to give kudos to you ladies because good girlfriends is something that we all need as women. So what you do here on this platform and sharing the messages and the conversations that we need, and we need the space to have them is a must. So thank you, ladies, for what you do to help support us.
Thank you. That's what we say every week, is that we just hope that we can bless someone out there. So and I always say I learn so much, even though I'm trying to help bless others. I'm always every week amazed at how much I learn, personally. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So let's get into this book though.
Yeah.
You want to tell us anything first, or you want to jump right into the book, Ericka?
Let's jump right into it and just let the conversation go and let's just flow with it.
All right, I have to give a shameless plug that my husband did this photography of this sexy leg pose.
And I was going to mention that. And to
shameless
get to
plug.
This was hilarious.
Epic Media Photography did
yes.
this. This cover looks fabulous. So
yes, kudos to him. Absolutely.
You're a gorgeous woman. So he had a great subject. I will say that.
Thank you, sis. I appreciate you for that. And definitely shout out to him for all his hard work.
I appreciate you supporting Epic Media Photography too. I do not take that for granted at all. So thank you for that. Anyway, let's get into the book.
Yes, let's get into it.
So I'm going to just jump right in here and first of all say, hey, I'm so happy to be back. This is fabulous. I've been missing good girlfriends. But the pre-show, there's a pre-show and a post-show for both those of you that know the good girlfriends. So during the pre-show, we discussed, Eric and I and Cara, that there are lots of similarities to this book and some of my personal experiences as well. And so I did also enjoy reading the book. I think probably because it really did resonate with me. Many of the things, the suggestions, Ericka talks about divorce and her, moving through her divorce. And there were so many pearls in this book, and so many things that she mentioned that I agree with. And I just want to really talk about one thing that you mentioned in the book that was extremely, like, if it's one takeaway from the book, it's the importance of putting the children front and center, right, of this process. Like, there are so many emotions that you go through when you're dissolving a significant relationship. And when you have children, it's so important to make sure, like I always say, grown folks are going to be okay. I'm going to be fine. But what can I do to ensure, what steps can I take to ensure that my child is going to come through this hole? Because in a divorce, it's the children really that I find are the ones that bear the brunt of however their parents decide to move. And there's no handbook for marriage, and there's definitely, God knows, no handbook for divorce.
Absolutely.
Or parenting.
Absolutely.
So can we take a step back though? And Jeanette, I know you were ready to jump in here. I know you were ready, but let's at least tell everyone the premise of the book.
Oh, yes.
Because you jumped straight in.
I did.
That's okay.
We've read the book, so we know what it's about. But maybe Ericka, you give us a little background on how you came to writing the book, and then maybe just an overview of what the book is about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I'll segue into your comment, Jeanette, because that's a key one. So the book really is centered around my divorce as my transition point, and as women, as people in general, but in particular women, particularly women, there's always a transition for us. So in this case, mine was going through divorce and finding myself in this stage of life at 50. Well, I'm 53 now. I was 50 at the time. Like, oh God, like I'm in this place that I've never been in before. So now what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to navigate paying the bills on my own? How am I going to even think about finding love again? How am I going to make sure that I'm okay, my kids are okay, and all the things connected to us? So the book is centering on navigating through that and finding joy on the other side of that. That's the first piece of it. The second piece of it really was to show that even though divorce is difficult, there's lots of people who are impacted by it. It doesn't have to be messy, and it can be okay. And you can get to a point where you and your spouse or ex-spouse can have a healthy relationship for your children and for any other new relationships that come into play. And Jeanette, to your point, I think making decisions for your children is important. I know that where we failed, and I talk about this, is that we were so busy trying to protect and to handle everything on our own, and, not wanting to share certain things about what we were doing to go through the process. And we shielded so much that we didn't communicate as much as we should have about, okay, mom and dad are going to, separate. This is what's going to happen. We're going through mediation. So we didn't share those things up front like we should have. Looking back on it is what I say to people, don't do what we did, do it differently so that you can kind of bring them along through the process, as difficult as it may be.
Mm-hmm. I think, though, to the point about there being no handbook for divorce, that we all do the best that we can through a difficult situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure as your children, when they reflect on this time or the process or whatever, that they'll be able to see and can have conversation with you too about things that you did or decisions that you made that were couched in love. Nothing more than that. There were no, like from what I read in this book, it didn't seem like there were any selfish acts, right? Like everything was done in a manner that you thought would be within their best interest.
Yeah, we did what we thought was best, and we could always look back and say, but was that really the best? Or maybe we should have had this conversation at this point. And so, everything in life is a lesson. And you get to share it in the form of, okay, here's the book, here's how we handled it. Maybe we could have handled it differently. And if you, reader, find yourself in this situation, then maybe this gives you a little something to think about as you go forward in the process for yourself. So,
to your point about it doesn't have to be messy.
Say again.
You made a statement earlier on that you said, one of the reasons you wrote this was to show folks going through divorce that it doesn't have to be messy or, contentious. I think that's a choice too, right?
That is yeah.
Like, you have to make the decision that this is not the relationship that I want to have with the father of my children or the mother of my children. As you said, your relationship impacted other lives. So, your actions would have ramifications for others as well. And so it's a choice to make it a peaceful process. It takes a lot of prayer.
Yes.
But it is definitely a choice that you have to make.
Absolutely. And I think, the choice comes through the rough places, because when you're emotional, you're in your feelings, you kind of navigating through all the the stages of loss. sometimes you're not there right away, right? It takes some time, and it takes giving yourself some grace, because you may not be there initially to feel like, well, I want to create this healthy space, because you're healing. You're trying to move through a space that's unfamiliar. You're trying to move through a space that doesn't feel good. And so sometimes the last thing on your mind is, oh, well, let me just make this all rosy and fun. The reality of it is like, okay, you might be here and you got to kind of tiptoe through that thing to get to that place. But you're absolutely right. It is a choice. And at the end of the day, I think my ex and I both wanted our children to be in a healthy space. And we wanted them to have, nurturing relationships to be healthy for all of us. And that's the stage where we are now. So you're right. It is a choice.
But
I
you
love
talk,
go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead, Gar.
I love how you organize this book to how the first chapter you basically were talking about it, I think it's titled "If You're Scared, Say You're Scared." And I think that's a real, dealing with emotions and really saying that, okay, this is scary, and yeah, we are, this, I thought that was really a great way to start it, because I think that's, if you can deal with that initially and handle that, then you can move forward in a more positive way. But if you're running scared all the time, then that sort of might breed other not so nice emotions later, just to combat the fear. So
Yeah. You know how you have those, like, oh shit moment, like, oh God, okay, this is happening.
yeah,
And you don't have a clue about what step needs to happen first and what do you do next. Like, it's just all these things that you have to handle. And then there's um the other things associated with being scared. Like, it's not just about paying bills on your own, but it's like, oh God, what are people going to think? And all of the stuff that comes along with making an adjustment into something that you've never experienced before.
yeah. So dealing with all your emotions, whatever they are, and letting them
Mhm.
come. I think Jeanette and I talked about that at one point. You got to let the emotions come, and you feel whatever you feel and be okay with that.
Let me tell you, there was a moment in time, this is sort of like, at one moment you might say, hey, I'm okay. The next moment you're kind of feeling some kind of way, and you don't know how to deal with that. And I remember my son saying to me, he said, Mom, he said, it's okay to say that you're not okay. Now, my son at the time we had this conversation, he was 14. And I'm sitting here listening to my 14-year-old son say to me, Mom, it's okay that you're not okay in this moment. And I'm like, okay, all right, yep. So I can, I can shed a tear, or I can be kind of like in my little space where I don't want to have a lot of conversation. So you're right. And we have to give ourselves grace, because those moments will come, and we have to kind of lean into what that looks like and feels like for us as individuals. And it's different for everybody.
It's different. Yep.
I agree. I also you mentioned about having good friends and family to support you. And I can say to you, like, during parts of the process when I was going through my divorce, I think initially I was paralyzed for a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, oh shit, and I don't even know if it was an oh shit moment as much as like it's overwhelming. And so
Mm-hmm.
I am so grateful to, very close friends, good girlfriends, right? One in particular who was like, what are you doing? And I was
Mm-hmm.
like,
I don't
you
know.
know, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing. And she was like, have you talked to a lawyer?
Mm-hmm.
So there were some circumstances around that. And she was like, I got you. Got
Mm-hmm.
me, in touch with a good lawyer. And then the ball started rolling, but I kind of needed to be catapulted into like, you got to do something. You can't just, Jeanette, you just can't, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
those are real, I mean, that's reality, because it is a life-changing experience.
Right.
And the importance, as you both said, of honoring your emotions. I was very self-reflective about different emotions that would come up. Why am I feeling this way? And it's okay that I'm feeling this way, because the emotions come out one way or another. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to go through it to get to the other
That's
side.
right.
because if you don't go through it, they come out in other ways anyway. So
Mhm.
the
So
idea system
I
is important.
I could have highlighted so like almost everything in the book, but I didn't. I didn't highlight everything in the book, but I did flip to something that I did highlight. So I'm gonna read it. I probably need to put my glasses on. Let me see. You know, I will say, note to Erica, I've already told her this. I'm appreciative that the text in this book
Yes.
is large enough for me to read because I
For
live
those of us over 50 who
at this point. So I appreciate that. But
got
anyway,
it.
on page 38, it says, staying in a marriage that is unhappy can be emotionally toxic and physically draining. It can keep us from living the best life God intends for us. And then on the next page, I highlighted, it's okay to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the two things I highlighted in that first chapter.
Yeah, and just think about this, ladies. You know, as women, how often do we carry the mantle so heavy, so hard, and so often that we have this cape that we put on, right? I can do everything. Now, this is whether you're married or not. I can handle it. People come to you because they know you got it. They know you can handle it. They know you're the one who can provide the solution. And you're taking it on, right? Because you're wearing this cape. You got all these different hats. So whether you're a mother, a wife, a girlfriend, a business owner, an employee, all of the things. And so sometimes we get so in our space that we don't think we should ask for help because we got it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want women to know is it is okay to say, you know what, just like my son told me, it's okay to say you're not okay. And if you're not okay, then what do you need or how can I support you? And we open our mouths to say what we need.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of us are not used to that.
Right. Most
Some of
women.
us,
Most
yeah,
women.
exactly. Because as women, we're nurturers of all things. And it doesn't have to be nurturers of all things to everybody all the time. So I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you calling that out because that's regardless of whether you're divorced or not. That's just general talk.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, something else I noticed about well, similarities and for the both of you is that you both married young at a
Mm-hmm.
young age, I should say, at a young age. And so you built or you grew up almost with your mate.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that is even you know, even trickier because I mean you know your I won't call them formative, but your formative adult years, you know, you were together. So to move on at an older age, not older, but you know, more advanced
Mm-hmm.
age, it's like all of that was what who you were as an adult almost.
Yeah.
I think that is you know, that's even trickier
Yeah,
when
because you're
starting
rediscovering.
over.
Exactly. And that can be scary. I mean,
Right.
you know, the dating game, I know we're going to get into it. I don't know, it's like looking at this whole thing from a different lens,
Mhm.
in my 50s and in a
Right.
space. I said, I'm here. Now, what do I do with this? I got
Mhm.
to, do I really have to start all over? And then you start and here lately, for me, I've enjoyed this time of being by myself because this is the first time in my entire life that I've been on my own, right?
Mhm.
And so there's an excitement about that. There's also a part that says, oh gosh, like, do I still have time to find love? Is there somebody out there for me? I got to make sure somebody gets used to who I am now. I got to make sure they know I have hot flashes. I sweat at night, like all the things that
Mhm.
we've got to reset and readjust to. And literally starting at I don't want to say starting over, maybe it's starting at a new point
Mhm.
because maybe that kind of softens it a little bit. But yeah, it's a whole new world now.
Yeah.
It is a whole new world, and you have to make a decision. Like, do you want to go through that getting to know somebody? Do you know what I like? The beauty though is that you get to make the choice.
Mhm.
There's
Yes.
no like you can choose to find love again and do that, or you can choose to like just love on yourself until it is exciting. There are lots of exciting parts of being
Mhm.
single.
Yeah.
I tell my
It's
friends,
that part, Jeanette. It's the loving on yourself in the meantime. That's what I like.
that's
Hmm.
the good, that's the good thing. You're taking care of you. Like your children are older now and self-sufficient for the most part. So now
Yeah.
it's all about like it's all on your terms. I use that a lot. Like I like to have things on my terms. It doesn't always work out for me because I'm always, but I do. I like to have things on my own terms. And so um you get to figure some stuff out. We're learning and growing and evolving every day. So it's a
Yeah.
good time. I tell friends, like divorce, I still believe in marriage. I still believe in love. I think marriage is a great institution, a
Hmm.
wonderful institution.
Hmm.
Um, however, it takes a lot of work too. And you have to really know yourself before you can, join in a healthy union with someone else. So it's,
Yeah.
I think, a great time to just discover who you are.
And I'm
And
gonna
I
take
think we know now, right? Like I can say I know that now. Um, I wish that I had taken time to do that way back when, right? To understand myself, because then it would have helped me to show up in a space differently in my relationship, right? So for every woman out there who's listening to this or who will see the replay, who's going to go to Amazon and pick up the book and read it for themselves, like just know that that's a space that is sacred for you to be intentional about, as you said, Jeanette, to make a choice about, like, let me figure me out. Now, I know it might be a little bit, it might not be as easy if you're already in a relationship and those conversations have not happened, but it's something that I think is absolutely essential for every woman to discover herself and be present for her so that she can be present for other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree.
I agree with that. I want to make a comment that this book is relevant for anyone making any type of transition, whether it's divorce or you've lost your job and you have to or you're changing jobs and don't even have to lose a job, but any type of transition in your life. I think that the book is definitely full of pearls that will help with whatever transition you're making at this point in life. So I know we're talking about divorce on this segment, but I just wanted to make that point that after reading it, you will have many pearls that will help you make at least a smoother transition. So
Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because somebody might be watching and like, well, I'm not going through divorce. I'm not, but you might be going through something else. And so you're right. So thank you for bringing that to the
yeah.
audience's attention.
So let's talk about, I made this point earlier, or maybe I don't think I've made it on here yet. So it must have been in the pre-show where I was saying that divorce affects everyone. And you talk about that so eloquently in this book, how everyone who knows the two people that are getting divorced are affected. Friends, family, children, everyone, coworkers, everyone is affected by a divorce. And so I totally agree with what you're saying about that. It's
Yeah.
almost a trauma for everyone. It's traumatic.
Yeah. I mean, there's intertwined relationships across the board. And, for us, I had three segments of family, right? Like I had my ex's family, my side of the family on my mom's side, and then my dad's side of the family. And everybody was connected. If we had something, everybody was invited.
Mm.
And so it does affect how you then move forward and figure out, these are people that have been parts of our lives forever, close to 30 years. So you can't just turn that off. But it's important it's almost like bringing everybody else along. And yeah, it's difficult because people are like, oh no, it's going to be different. Holidays are not going to be the same but we figured out a way to still keep the connections in a way that it may not be the same as it was before, but it's a new normal, so to speak.
Mm.
And to your
Yeah.
point about the new normal, the
Mm-hmm.
family and friends follow your lead, right? So you get to set, like when you talked about it being messy and not, it doesn't have to be. they follow your lead. If you're like, this is what we're doing, right? We're all going to dinner together. We're all
Yeah.
having Thanksgiving dessert together, right? Or whatever we're
Mhm.
doing. The friends and family, it's awkward at first or
Mhm.
different. I don't want to say awkward. It's
No,
different,
no.
but
Mhm.
everyone gets on board. And it can, when you, like you said, when you get to the other side, um, it can be a nice, loving, thriving, blended situation, but it does take time. And most importantly, your friends, your family follow your lead. So if you
Yeah.
seem to be okay with it, there have been many a times that my girlfriends will say, well, you're good with this, so I guess I gotta be all right. This is what we're doing. Yes, this is what we're doing. And it's okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Like, and I don't know that I said it that way in the book or even talked about it, but you're right. It's like you set the stage for how things are going to be. And absolutely, that is it in a nutshell. And but it goes back to what you said earlier, and it's a choice, right? We have to be intentional about what are we trying to create? How do we do it? And we may have to take baby steps,
Mhm.
but we're going to do it. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Absolutely.
And like you said, Erica, it doesn't happen overnight. Like for a
Mhm.
person that might just be going through this process, right? There are many nights that you're on the phone with friends, working through your emotions, right?
Mm.
So it's not, I don't want anyone to think either that it's just like, oh yes, this is a fabulous process. That
Nope.
just because there were many a times that I've, said some bad words.
Mhm.
Not to the, well, maybe to the person too, but not, like there are
Yeah,
emotions, like just being very open and honest. Like you do go through many emotions, um,
absolutely.
and you have to go through it though. The key is to go through it and not try to suppress it and pretend that you're not feeling certain ways. If I'm sad, I'm gonna tell you I'm very sad. I'm very emotional about this. Even it like having transparency with the ex-husband, there would be many times that we would have conversations and I would say I'm very upset about this and here's
Mhm.
why I'm upset or whatever.
Mhm.
Just to honor myself, not about him, but
Just
about
get it out.
that,
Yeah.
to like honor where I am too. Um so
Well, and that's a great point, Jeanette, because I think the one thing that I want to make sure people don't say, finding joy at the source, like, oh, she's all joyful. And it's like, yeah, now I can say I feel joy, but I didn't always feel that way.
mhm,
And yes, there were moments of sadness, and yes, there were moments of frustration, and yes, there were like, oh God, am I feeling like a failure? Like, what is happening? So it's not something that happens overnight, but I think you hit it on the head. Like, we have to make decisions about what are we trying to create? And if we know what the end game is that we're trying to create, at least we know what we're working toward, but know that it's work to get there. So absolutely.
I can remember some good girlfriends saying like, pray for his peace and pray for yours. And
Mm-hmm.
initially I was like, why am I praying for his peace? But I
Mm-hmm.
listened. I was still obedient. I did not, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
when people would ask me like, how are you able to manage so in such a peaceful manner? That's what I
Mm-hmm.
prayed for. His peace and
Mm-hmm.
mine too.
And you,
Because
yeah.
that's what it required to, because we know it's a difficult journey,
Yeah.
right? So as much peace as you can bring to the situation, the better. And even praying for peace, I can't tell you there weren't times that I didn't want to smack his face, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not because, just
Yeah. Just the situation in general. Absolutely. Yeah. I
make
get it.
me feel good. I don't know. But I'm on the other side of that. But
No,
and,
I mean, it's real talk,
and tell you
And
that's
I'm sure,
my
he
best friend.
probably felt the same way, and my ex probably, was like, oh God, I don't know if I want to be around her. I don't
Right.
want to be, but you got to get through this
You have
space.
to
So
get on the other side of it. Correct.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
and prayer does help for, those that are praying, people that believe in it. It was,
Yes.
very helpful.
Yes. It is definitely something that sustained me. And I can honestly say I give God the glory for being in this space. Because it could be very different, harboring bitterness and anger and all the things that are not healthy for me, not healthy for him, our kids, and everybody connected to us. So yeah, it is definitely a foundation of how we've gotten through. So yeah.
Well, the next chapter after talking about family was talking about dating.
Mm.
Gee, let me take a sip.
So,
Jeanette, cheers. Come on.
That
Oh,
so when both of you ladies got married, dating apps weren't even a thing.
no. Who knew about
Online dating wasn't a thing. It was more of maybe go to a club or somebody introduce you or something like
yeah.
that. So the landscape of dating has completely changed since you were married or so how's that been?
nothing? I got absolutely nothing. I think online dating is interesting.
Yeah, it's a totally different world. I know we talked about this in the pre-show. Um, I was very averse to the dating apps.
Mhm.
And it was my sister who encouraged me to at least consider. She's like, listen, and at this point, it was 2020, so it's not like you were going out to meet anybody. She said, unfortunately, or fortunately, however, whichever way you look at it, this is the way people are meeting people. And I thought, oh God, are you kidding me? So I gave in. But when I tell you it has been a journey. This is me sometimes. I'll pick up my phone. I'm only on one app right now. And sometimes I scroll through, ladies, and I just get like, why are you here? Like, what is this? And I just throw my phone down because I don't get it. I just so it is a different world.
Yes.
And it's yeah.
I
I
told you
yeah,
I'm still old school. I still believe that introduce people to people or something. I'm like,
yeah, friend of a friend or
yeah, friend of a friend or something.
Somebody that can vouch for you, for the guy or whatever your choice is. But um, I also think that this world of dating, we have to be really intentional about knowing ourselves enough to know what we want. And I don't want to, try to shy away from saying what we want and what we don't want, because I want us to focus on what we want, so that when you're meeting people, however that is, that you don't fall into the trap of just, well, let me just go with any old thing just because I haven't defined myself enough or discovered that I love myself enough so that I'm not falling for any kind of trickery. But and then you got to move the walls beyond the whole dating app scene to even get to something that feels like, okay, I'm gonna have a conversation with you to get to the next stage. Yeah, it's different. Jeanette, what you think? You're like, I'm not doing it.
on any of the online. I have lived vicariously through others, like many of my girlfriends that are brave. First of all, I think like for women that are of a certain age, it's very brave, right? I think to do that. You're putting yourself out there, getting your feet wet or whatever. And I have not been that brave. I have to be very honest with you. I have and I don't know what that's about because I'm
I was
usually
gonna say, what do you think that's
very, I'm usually up game to just try something, but I really haven't been, that's just not one area. If I really haven't done that. I don't know what it is. I've talked to
yeah.
many friends. I've laughed at the stories. I feel like I'm not up for the nonsense. I don't know. And I've heard some crazy stories, funny, but
Mhm.
I don't know what that is, what that's about. I really don't. I have to explore that a
Yeah.
little bit further because many of my girlfriends are on sites and have dated, with intention, like intentionality, I should say. Um,
Right.
I'm not sure what that's about, Ericka. Friends.
Yeah, I mean,
I always wonder if it's partially because, I mean, I'll speak for all three of us. I'll take the liberty of saying that we've all been pursued by men. So for us to have to go and do something different, I think that's just the old school.
Yes.
I always feel like I'm like, well, why are you gonna do that? And,
Yeah.
No, they find us. Why do we gotta look at anything? They'll, I think that's part of like in the back of my head, like,
I never thought about that perspective, but you're right. It's like, yeah, like why do I have to go find somebody? Let him come find me, And then the flip side is in this world that we're in, it's like, well, dang, if you wait for somebody to come and like, pull up on you first, you might miss out, which,
right. Well, that's my point. That's the point. That it's like we're stuck in that old way of thinking, but in reality, if you're at home all the time and you don't really go anywhere, like we were out and social more before, but if you're at home, how's anybody really gonna spot?
Yeah,
That's
I
true.
know. Oh gosh.
It's a different world.
I have some comments on Facebook, so I'm going to read them. I lost one of the comments. I apologize to Sarah. It's not here anymore, but someone named Sarah, and I believe you would know her, Ericka. I didn't catch her last name, and I don't remember what the comment said, but it was something about you are dropping lots of pearls tonight. So I just want to, sorry about that, Sarah. But Regina Clay said great information. Regina is one of our good girlfriends, and she said, it takes time to get to that peace, especially if children are involved. Children will force you to be peaceful with the ex. One of our poly sisters, Andrea, said yes, and she said the issue I've run into is my decent male friends don't have single decent friends to introduce me to, whereas I have loads of decent women I can introduce them to. Laugh out loud. Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the pool is the ratio is very different, So to your point, so thank you to all those who are watching and sharing comments. And I know we don't have the comment from Sarah, but just the fact that she made a comment and is checked in with us is a good thing. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's like then there's all these statistics. I was looking at something, I had a book that I got this from. It's like 1 in 4 women will get married, and for every single man that's out there, it's like there are 10 women who are trying to get this man's attention. And so then you find yourself in this space of, well, do I have to compete with 9 other women just to get it? It's just so many things.
Right. I feel what is for me is for me. So let me go about on my daily, whatever I do. And if there is a lid for my pot, then the lid will find its way.
Yeah.
And I think we have to get to the place where we're not so, oh gosh, like I gotta find him. Where is he? And we're so consumed by it that we just miss the opportunity to be present and just trust that God has someone for me, and he's going to show up, and we're going to find each other in the space that we need to find each other in. Sometimes I'm like, Lord, where? But it's all good.
Yes. And this dating discussion has nothing to do with divorce. This is basically anybody single who's dating.
Right.
Single.
This is
everybody's going through the same thing on that one.
Yeah, for many, like we've had this discussion before. It's just it's a different jam. Like the younger generation, they are all into the apps. And first of all, I was sad to find out when I found out that that's how a lot of the young, like, our children, that's how they were meeting folks. Because I'm like, what happened to the parties, the house parties and the friends? I don't like that. That's not safe. But that's their,
Yeah. And that's what they know. Like they don't know what we, how we met people, because that's not their generation. So this is like, okay, this is what they're with, this is their thing. So
yeah. So it is it's a different thing. It's a difficult time.
I will say this before we move on. I would say this to any person who is considering dating, date yourself first. Like, understand who you are, what you like. I say this in the book, and I'm not going to give too much of it away because I want you to go get it and read it for yourself. But sit down and make a list of things that, 1, you love about yourself, and 2, that when you start to find companionship, and you define what that looks like, whether it's short term. You might just want it to be physical. You might look for long term, but you need to know that too. But when you get present to who you are, what you want, then it'll help you to sift through a lot of the stuff and the BS that might be out there that's not aligned with that. So, but if you don't do that first, and you might get caught up in any old thing. So I wanted to mention that because I think that's important for every person to focus on.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Me too. To be
Okay,
clear.
well, let's move on from dating. The next chapter is called Use It for Good. And I actually did highlight something in this chapter. I thought maybe it wasn't this chapter. But we can talk about it. Oh, I highlighted your past strategy.
Mhm.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the past strategy is something that I use with my clients. And a lot of times when we talk about transformation or moving on to the best version of ourselves, we do it without taking a minute or some time to uncover some of the things that we've struggled with. So the past strategy looks at 4 different aspects. One, our pain points, like what are the things that have traumatized us on whatever level? Like trauma looks different for everybody. Recognizing what that is. The A in the strategy is all about the allowances, like what behaviors are we associating with that particular pain point? And the S in this strategy is around strongholds, which is what emotions connect me to this thing, this pain point. And then the T is the most important part. And that's how do we transform that pain point into something that is going to be positive, not just for us, but that we can share with other people. And, you know, if I were to look at this, my divorce as the pain point, you know, an allowance or a behavior might be, you know, my sadness or my withdrawal from people. The stronghold might be my feeling of, oh gosh, will I ever be able to love again? And the transformation is this book. You know, I've been able to take those pieces, put it into this book, share it out, and hope that, you know, those who read it will be able to get what they need from it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
You know, and you can, you know, I'm sure all of us here tonight can say, you know, well, gosh, what's a pain point that I've struggled with? I mentioned this in my first book, and one of the pain points that I struggled with was the fact that I was bullied in middle school and elementary school, and all the things that came along with that, how I felt about myself. You know, I was very insecure and, you know, a little bit shy in some places. And so all of us have pain points that trigger other things in our lives and how we show up. And sometimes we don't even realize it until we go through this exercise. So, yeah.
Mhm.
That's good.
That is good. Hearing you mention like something that happened to you in like during your childhood, right? Many of us like bring that to adulthood. Like we don't deal with our inner child. So
Yep.
again, if you don't deal with or go through whatever emotions you need to deal with the trauma that happened from childhood, it manifests itself in another way in your adult life. And you continuously face that same situation over it, it continues to manifest itself in different ways. So whether it's insecurities or you bullying other people or overcompensating for the, you know, it shows up until you deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. This
That
is
you mentioned inner work in your,
this exercise.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, say
I
no,
said
I
you
was gonna
mentioned
say
in the book inner work, the importance of doing the inner work, and that is critical.
yeah. I can tell you, whenever I go through this exercise with a client, it is definitely one that takes some time. You know, like we could stay in that space for literally weeks because it can be just that deep. But absolutely, it is inner work, and I think even in the divorce space, making sure that you heal from whatever it is that you need to heal from before you go into another relationship. Because if you don't, you're just carrying the same old thing potentially into the next. And so that's part of that past process as well.
So I will ask you this question, and I just started to reflect on this on my own too for myself. But what would you say has been one of like your biggest ahas or lessons learned, like from going through your divorce, like a personal something that you discovered about yourself, or that you're like, I've improved in this way because of going through this process. What would you say to that?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I think the biggest thing is being more resilient than I thought.
Mhm.
Because when you first start even saying the word divorce, it's just like, oh God, how am I going to make it? What am I going to do? And there's all this stuff that rises up. And I think that is the biggest aha. I will tell you, the first time I made a mortgage payment on my own, it was like a celebration.
Mhm.
And I know that I'll give God all the glory for that, because that was like insurmountable to me. Like, oh my gosh, can I do this? I was the one that said I wanted to keep the house.
Mhm.
So I think the biggest aha is we're more resilient than we think. And we can get to the other side to feel good,
Mhm.
just to feel good. I
Mhm.
think that's probably it in a nutshell.
What was
Mhm.
yours, Jeanette?
I think for me, I won't say well, probably the same as resilience, but I learned how mentally tough I was going through
Mhm.
this process. Um, and also it made me a better communicator. So I became a lot more skilled at removing my emotions from the conversation and
Mm.
being really
Mm.
thoughtful in my in how I communicated, especially with my ex-husband, because I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure that we heard each other. And when I learned through the process that the emotionally charged conversations didn't were not productive, right? And so that in turn helped me communicate in other areas of my life with other folks too, because I became more aware of and more intentional about like being a better listener, and then communicating differently and
That's
being
beautiful.
able to say like, this when you did X, Y, and Z, or I received your action this way. I'm asking a clarifying question, like not making assumptions about someone else's behavior, um, without like clarifying, having those difficult conversations, I'll say. So it helped me in those
Mhm.
grow in those areas
I love
tremendously.
how you, I love how you said you with taking the emotion out, because for me, that's one of my biggest challenges. When I'm passionate about something, or if I'm saying something, I'll show too much emotion and I'm not able to get my point across as well because I'm so emotional about it. So that's really good.
Hmm.
Mhm. Yeah,
Not
that's
easy
a
either.
no, it's not.
No,
And
I still
the,
work on it, but I've gotten better at it.
That's
yeah,
good.
that's the thing, the work still happens, the work still goes on, and it should, And I tell people, yeah, I'm in therapy on a regular basis still, just because that's a part of my self-care and working through, stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah.
And we all have stuff,
Yeah,
Oh,
whether you divorce, not divorce, whatever. We
yeah,
all have stuff.
everybody has stuff.
that
Everybody.
part, that part, absolutely.
You just mentioned self-care, which leads us into our next chapter. Chapter
Mhm.
6, which is to thine own self be true. And I think that's the chapter where you talked about self-care. And we're big on
Mhm.
self-care discussions on this show. We love to talk about self-care. In fact, I think November was our self-care month, wasn't it? We're
So,
usually the month of November. And let's start it now, ladies. Every day
Okay.
in the month of November, we want to be intentional about doing some form of self-care.
Yes.
We designate November as the month that we try to do that intentionally.
I love it. I love it.
So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think about that in this chapter.
Yeah. So, you know, at the end of the day, it goes back to kind of how we started the conversation, or at some point in the conversation, we talked about this cape that we often wear as women. And I firmly believe, whether you're going through divorce or not, but in this context, the self-care was important to me because it was an outlet for me, to focus on, you know, making sure that I worked out or making sure that I had quiet time and quiet space, just because I was trying to regulate my emotions mentally, physically, spiritually. But regardless of divorce, all of us need to take better care of ourselves. And I don't just mean self-care Saturday or self-care Sunday or even self-care month. I mean every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a group of women that I'm working with right now, and one in particular expressed that, you know, she's got something going on, and the first opportunity is on a specific date. And I say, you know, I'm gonna push back because we run ourselves ragged doing everything for everybody. And you know, if you've ever flown, you know what the exercise is before that plane takes off, right? It is put your oxygen mask on first. So I am always going to advocate for, and I appreciate the fact that you ladies share with your good girlfriends and your good girlfriends audience, that we need to take care of ourselves.
Mhm.
Um, and be unapologetic about it. Sometimes we think, well, taking care of ourselves is what we eat, is what we drink, is working out. There's so many different components to self-care. It's creating boundaries so that you know, if you're in space of conversation with people, you know how to shut certain things down because you can feel how it impacts you. You know, it's um what do I want to, decompressing from some of the stuff that's going on in the world. We got to know all the things that are happening, but when we get so inundated with all the trauma that's going on, then it affects us. So we got to know when to shut those things down. So self-care is such a broad spectrum, and I'm always going to advocate for it. I'll say this really quickly before we move on. When I'm dealing with my clients, one of the things that is foundational is that if you come to me and you say, I've got this goal that I want to achieve, or, you know, I think this is what my best version looks like, so I want to get to there. I will always say, how are you making space for you first? Because when you do that, then you can have clarity, you can have space, you can have focus to then decide what that next best version looks like. But if you got so much stuff going on and you managing all this stuff and you running yourself ragged, you're not going to be able to open yourself up to what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So self-care, wellness, healthy living, well-being, it all works together. And we got to change some of the myths that we've embraced about what that looks like for us so that we can recognize how important it is to take care of ourselves on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And some of the points I remember you made in that chapter were about giving yourself grace. And
Mhm.
we've talked about that here too on this Good Girlfriends chat, that we give everybody else grace. Sometimes you have to give yourself grace too. And some people need to give other people grace too, but that's another story.
Yeah,
But
that is true.
that's freeing too for you, for you. Like to grace the other person is not always about the other person. It frees
Mhm.
you up.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I think another thing you talked about in that book, let me look, I thought it was this chapter where you talked about well, another point was consider therapy. And so I know that was part of self-care or part of the self-care chapter, but I thought it was something about decide when to share. I thought that
Mm.
was a good section too.
Yeah. You know, because everybody doesn't know how to handle what we share.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not meant for everybody to know certain things,
Right.
right? Um, there's some things that we need to or want to keep to ourselves, or, you know, with just a small circle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, sometimes when we unload on people, they don't know how to receive that. So sometimes we may have to ask, you know, can I share this with you? And recognize that it may or may not be a safe space to do so. And you might not know that off the top, it might take some, several conversations or situations to figure out whether or not it's okay to share. But yeah, that's important.
Yeah, I like that part of the book too.
The safe space, that's that's critical. I think that's funny. My mother and I were having a discussion not too long ago about as you go through divorce and you have different emotions that come up about your ex, you do need to be careful of what you share, right? Because this is still the father of your children, still someone that is respected in the community where you live, right? And so you have to be there, yes, honor your emotions, but like you said, everything is not for everybody.
Right.
So you have to be, regulate your emotions enough to know, like, you're not bad mouthing the father of your, right? Like I said to my mother, I might be able to say some stuff, but that's still the father of my child and my friend. So we're not doing that, right?
Right.
So just be mature enough to get yourself together. You might, have that one trusted friend, but be very careful.
Yeah,
You're not
absolutely.
trying
It
to,
works both ways, right?
yeah.
Your ex doesn't want to badmouth you and you don't want to because it's not healthy for the relationship that you will have because you have children together, Yeah, absolutely.
Because, I mean, I guess ultimately you're still family.
Yeah,
It's
So,
still family. Yeah. I mean, our kids and us and the new spouse, we've gone to the games and hanging out doing the tailgate. I mean, yeah, we are still family.
right.
And it might be I don't even want to say non-traditional because it's not like we're the only ones who have gone through this, but it might not be the family that we created in the beginning.
Right.
But it's still family. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, that's pretty much it before we get to the now what part. But before we get to that, how about I'm going to ask this question. So, what would you say, and it may not be, I'm sure it's not a one size fit all answer at all, but what are some of the general things that good girlfriends can do to support our sisters friends when they're going through a divorce? Like, is there anything that was helpful when you were going through a divorce that your good girlfriends were able to do, or
Yeah, I think
after a divorce?
one of the most important, and that's a great question. One of the most important things I think is to ask the good girlfriend who's going through the divorce, what can I do to support you? Because sometimes we jump in and we think, this is what you need, and this is what I know you need. But to ask the question, I'm here. I need you to know that I'm here. So what can I do? And I will tell you that two of my closest friends were there for me when I needed them to be. And they also gave me space when I was like, I don't want to talk to nobody. So I think asking the question, and then the other part is sometimes we just want to talk. We might not need a solution. We might not be asking you for direction, or we just might need an ear. So the question is, what do you need? And then how do you need me to give it? When you share with me, do you want my advice? Do you want me to give you an opinion? Do you want me to just listen? Tell me what you need and how you want me to support. Because in that way, you're honoring her where she needs you to be. And that could change from one situation to the next. But that's probably the biggest thing. And the sacred space to keep whatever she shares in confidence, right? She needs to know that you got her back with not putting her business out or whatever, is going on. So being able to provide that sacred space is important.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. The listening ear is important. The sacred space is important. I would agree with all of those things. I think that's enough, just to have someone that would, in a non-judgmental way, like whatever I'm saying, I'm sharing, like no judgment. This is just
Yeah.
who I am right here. And tomorrow I might be different. I might
Yep.
be different. Just roll with the punches. I just need somebody to go along for the ride. How they say ride or die, just ride with me. That's that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And I also think, just to piggyback, and I know I could just sit here all night, but I also think that we, as the ones going through divorce, have to also be mindful of the other people, right? Like, we want to make sure we've got that sacred space, we've got that good girlfriend, but we also want to think about her well-being as well. Because if we're unloading so much, right, it might become a lot for her to bear at a particular moment in time. So we need to kind of find that delicate harmony between what we need and honoring that person too. Like, if you're unloading on her all day, every day, like it could be a lot. So we got to give her space to process and decompress from you bringing your stuff to her. So that's another thing to think about.
Mhm. Okay, good. Well, the last chapter is now what? So now what?
Yeah. Now what is, so now that I'm here, what am I going to do with this? And that's really all about, going back to the word you used earlier, Jeanette, the choice. What do I do with this now that I've gone through it? How can I continue to move on, right? To grow, to learn, to discover more about myself, to embrace things that make me happy and joyful, make me feel good. How can I prepare myself to show up in the best way in the next? So it's all about the finding the joy, right? On the other side of this, the now what is, I get to choose to be happy, to move on, to use this experience as a lesson in my life, and to be able to share it with others so that they can find some good in whatever situation they're going through.
Mm-hmm. And I like how in this chapter you talked about how you're not just surviving divorce, you're thriving. And I thought that was really important that, people,
Yeah, those.
yeah, that you can thrive. You don't have to just survive it. It's not like, you can move on. You can have a fulfilled, full life on the other side of divorce.
Yeah. And, to that point, those, I call them the 3 stages of, getting to that now what. It's, you're acknowledging the space that you're in, you're surviving through it because you're still trying to get used to the difference in the family dynamic, your emotions. And when things happen, you're like, oh, I'm feeling this some kind of way. Are we going to be in the same space at the same time? And then you get to the point where you just say, just kind of release, and you're like, okay, I feel like I'm thriving, right? I feel like we can all be in the same space at the same time, and ain't nobody sitting back like, I don't, am I supposed to say something? So yeah, it's a point of moving to feeling good. And I think that's what we all want, right?
Mm-hmm. And
What you
back to
thinking?
what you made before, this is not overnight. This happens. It's a process.
Yes,
It takes time to get to all of this. So,
absolutely. It's not a linear space. It's, 1 minute you're feeling like, okay, I'm good. And next minute you're like, oh, I don't feel so good. And then you're like, so you kind of moving through this space, and you got to allow yourself to be in those spaces.
and these are choices. You may choose not to do any of this, but these are choices that, to move if you want to move in this particular direction. It can happen. Some people
Absolutely.
they don't want to do this. They don't want
Yeah.
to, because that's what they need for themselves to move forward. But,
Like,
Well,
absolutely.
everyone's process is different too, right?
would you say?
I
What's your
said
name?
everyone's process is different.
Mm-hmm.
The dynamics, the relational dynamics may be different as well. I think that it seems like Ericka and I were fortunate in that, the relationship dynamics with the ex-husband were, amenable, good,
Right.
whatever. loving relationship, even post, marriage or whatever. But everyone may not have those same dynamics.
And
Yeah.
both you and your ex-husbands made the choice.
Right.
Both people made the choice. That's the other thing. Has to be on both sides, and that may not always happen too. You may very much want to move forward in this way, but your spouse or your ex-spouse may not. So,
Yeah.
you can only
And
do.
that's important for us to note. And I'm glad you ladies brought that up, because while this is our story, right, it could be different for the next person. And you might say, well, for my own health and well-being and for me to be healthy, it's best that we don't have any kind of communication, especially if you don't have kids. It's easier.
Right.
Right.
And so that's, a situation is different and certainly understandable, right? So yeah.
And even if that is the situation, there's still pearls in this book that will help get to the other side of divorce. Even if the case is you and your ex-spouse never speak again, but there are pearls to help each person move forward. Whether it's divorce, like we said, divorce, any type of transition.
Yeah.
Any type of transition, there are words of wisdom and pearls in this book to help.
I appreciate that. Absolutely. I do want to first of all, I want to thank you, ladies. I think, I could just sit and talk to you ladies all night, just because I think there's so many pros that we're all sharing. I do want to share with your viewers that I've decided to offer a program that is a companion to this book. So the program actually launches January 29th. Registration actually opens November the 13th, which is Monday. And it's Finding Your Joy Live. It is a 7-session program, a virtual program that I'm offering to women. And it's to do 3 things. It is, 1, to help process through the ups and downs of the transition, whatever that is. To pivot away from the emotional strain of that transition. And the best part is to then push forward to find joy for your future. So there'll be information to share that you'll be able to see on that November the 13th. But I do want to say, well, who is this for? So 1 is for women who are maybe separated and going through divorce. Maybe you're getting ready to go through divorce. Maybe you're trying to figure out, how do I manage financially after divorce? How do I manage relationships? How do I, honor myself through self-care unapologetically? Oh my gosh, I'm an empty nester. What does that look like for me? Or maybe you're trying to reinvent yourself. So those are the women that this program is for. And so if you're interested, I would say I'll certainly share with you, Cara, the link to find out more, and you can share with your audience. But I did want to mention that because I think there's lots of women who need different things, and this may be the thing to set you up for the brand new year. So
yeah, that's awesome. And as part of our Good Girlfriends chats, we also like to highlight African American female-owned businesses. So you are our highlight for the night as well. So if you can share more about what you do as part of your coaching. And you did mention earlier, we didn't even discuss that this is your second book. So if you tell us about your first book, and give us any other details and share your contact information for people, that would be really great. So we're going to put you on the screen. I appreciate highlight.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, so Cara mentioned in the beginning, I am a speaker, a self-help author, and transformation success coach. So my goal is to help you to transform from your here to your next. And as a result of my personal coaching and professional development programs, I help my clients, women, to figure out what stands in the way. Like every time you decide, I want to do this thing, I want to achieve this goal, and you say, oh God, but I don't know if I can do that. So my goal is to help you move those barriers out of the way so that you can create your best version and you can embrace taking care of yourself in the process to get to that. So my first book is Pathway to Purpose, that is also on Amazon. This book is exactly what the title says. It's all about the stories, the journeys that helped me to figure out that my purpose was to give back to women in the way that I just described. So both books can be found on Amazon, and then you can reach me at truesynergy@comcast.net, or you can go to my website, truesynergy.org, and that has all the information out there about True Synergy, how you can contact me, and all of my social media sites as well. So I do appreciate the opportunity to share with you ladies and your audience, and just, appreciate what you do to uplift, inspire, and motivate women. So thank you, ladies, for tonight.
And True Synergy is spelled TRUSYNERGY. So there's no E on the end of true in case someone is looking for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I do always like to mention that because somebody said to me once, well, I can't find you. I'm like, well, how are you spelling it? So thank you for putting that out there.
Yes, so this was awesome. I'm telling you, we have a lot of comments on here. When you get a chance, go back and look at the broadcast and you'll see all the comments. I couldn't even keep up with them tonight. So, but thank you so much. This was really good. I'm telling you all, you really need to get this book.
Book
I
is
really
excellent.
did enjoy reading it. I'm telling you, I'm not personally going through a divorce, have no plans of going through a divorce, but the book had, lots of pearls for me, as just any, just in life in general, there's always transitions. So, as I transition or try to figure out how I can transition out of corporate America into retirement,
Oh,
you know.
yes. Thank you, Cara. Beautiful, beautiful space that you created here, Jeanette. It has been a pleasure. I love the connection that we have just from life's experience, and then the space tonight was really awesome to be in with you as well.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm very grateful. I always say that we went to the best high school, and so I'm very grateful that our paths crossed. And I'll have to do a special shout out to Sean Branch because I don't think I would have known you as much.
Yep, that's
We were
right.
different years in high school, but Sean Branch brought us
Yep, it kept
together.
the bond together.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was able to get to know you then, and I got to know you even more through this book, to be honest with you. So it was really a nice story, and feel like I very much know you now, as if that's how well written this book is. So
I
thank you
appreciate
so much for joining
Thank
us. And the Good Girlfriends will be back very soon. We probably won't come back before Thanksgiving though, right? Because Thanksgiving's in 2 weeks.
Oh, week
Thank
after next.
you. Yeah,
Yeah, so we'll be back right after
the
Thanksgiving.
week after. Yeah.
The week after Thanksgiving, we'll be back. And until then, we hope everyone has a great weekend. And we hope that we've been a blessing to someone out there. And keep sending us female-owned businesses. We want to highlight some more. We've gotten quite a few. I put a little post out, and some people have noted some there. So we're going to reach out to them to see if they can come on and share their businesses. But keep sending us female-owned businesses. That's how we learn about businesses. We end up supporting them. And some of my favorite products, services have come through referrals of people telling us to highlight them on Good Girlfriends. So keep sending them our way. But until then, happy Thanksgiving, and everyone stay safe.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Eric.
Good night, everybody.
So I've got to turn this off.